Welcome to Let's Talk Red Hill, your source for the latest updates and insights on the Navy's progress at the Red Hill Bulk Fuel Storage Facility. This podcast is dedicated to keeping you informed, addressing your concerns, and sharing progress straight from the experts leading the way.
Hello, I'm Rear Admiral Mark Williams, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Red Hill. Today we're talking about something absolutely central to our mission here at Red Hill, emergency management and spill response planning. And joining me today is someone at the forefront of preparing our team to protect the environment while responding to emergencies, Melanie Tescher, our emergency response team leader for the Navy Closure Task Force here at Red Hill. Melanie, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So before we get started, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I started in this career field through college, where I obtained my Master's of Science degree in biology with an emphasis in toxicology. And then I continued on with the postmaster's coursework in environmental science. While I was in school, I was a teaching assistant where I actually taught courses in biology and environmental science. And I also worked at the college's Environmental Health and Safety Office, where I supported the university's emergency planning efforts. When I was in my last year of college, I got a position with the Army. And for 22 years now, my mission has been to support the service members and the military's mission in environmental compliance, environmental safety, and emergency planning.
So thanks for sharing that. So let's first start talking about the big picture, which is, again, our primary goal here is to prevent a spill from ever happening, and it drives every decision we make.
Yeah, well, prevention is the key, and that is the goal that we are trying to obtain. However, all the prevention in the world will never preclude the need to be prepared for a response. Incidences vary in size and complexity. Response always will follow the same procedures, where we start with a risk assessment, we move into planning, training, preparedness, then if unfortunately there's a response and recovery, and then finally a reassessment. Each of these steps will build on each other, and we will create a continuous feedback loop that is essential, since every action that we do, it changes the operational field.
So let's start with the first step, which is risk assessment. What does that mean for a facility that's large and complex like Red Hill?
The risk assessment is a two-prong effort. The first one is to do a facility risk assessment, which means that you will need to go and actually inspect the facility, know those systems inside and out. So that way we can identify weaknesses and vulnerabilities. That means, like I said, physically inspecting the facility, doing research through historical documents, interviewing current and past personnel, and understanding how the mechanical systems work. This information will then paint a picture of where we might have potential weaknesses or vulnerabilities, and so that way we can better eliminate or mitigate them. The second part of it is the operational risk, which is looking at the actual processes of the operation, or the CONOPS. The CONOPS, of course, is an approved plan. It's a step-by-step process that outlines how this job is going to be completed. Once I understand all the details between that CONOPS and, again, the facility, then I can bump the two up against each other, so I can create a design that will be most protective of the community and of the environment.
Okay, so once we've identified all the risks, we move into a planning phase. What does a solid response plan look like?
The response plan, again, we're talking two parts. We have the actual plan itself, which is the response plan, the facility response plan, that is a regulatory required document that contains specific information about the facility, location, descriptions, what our operations are, a hazard evaluation, a list of all our response personnel, and other important elements such as drills and exercises, drainage and evacuation routes, different things like that. The second is the operational planning, and I feel that this is the most important, since this plan is specific to each operation as a separate activity. The plan is designed from that information obtained from the facility and the CONOP risk assessments. Protective measures and spill containment is then designed based on where it is inside the facility, because every area is a little bit different and the vulnerabilities are different. So then, once we have that approval, that you approve of that containment strategy, then we'll have the contractor physically establish it. We will invite the EPA and the DOH to come and look at it, make sure it meets all their requirements, and if not, we'll do on-the-spot adjustments.
So the plan is not just a document, it's a living strategy, but the plan is really only as good as the people who have to execute it, which brings us to preparedness and training.
Correct. So again, back in the facility response plan, we have in there what we call a worst-case discharge scenario that we have to drill to. But I like to do my scenarios based on a real-world activity or operation that we're doing, so that way, if we are doing that operation, there is a release, then we're more prepared to handle that kind of incident. The team needs to understand what their roles and responsibilities are, again, which they'll learn through the training. They'll need to learn how to execute their response, deployment of the spill equipment, how to communicate. And so again, with that whole concept of the better we get, the more effective that response.
So if something does happen, it's not a scramble, it's really just muscle memory at that point.
Precisely.
So while highly unlikely, if a spill did occur, what would a response look like?
The response would look like, first of all, the person who discovered that release would try to stop or isolate it. And of course, safety side of this, we always want to make sure that it is, that they are comfortable and they feel safe enough to do it. But to stop or isolate it, it's either shutting off emergency valves, around that leak, turning a drum over if that's what the case is. Then we want to contain that material. And so that would be deploying absorbents or diversionary barricades, again, based on the design that we came up with, that strategy of where we need that containment. Then we clean up the spill, which is mop the floor, basically, and then we dispose of the waste in accordance with the regulations. That includes the packaging, any waste characterization and profiling, labeling, so on and so forth, and then we send it to a permitted disposal facility. We can never get away without documenting or reporting. So again, we have to have, the regulators have to be notified. Of course, we're already doing the internal reporting. We'll do documentation. And then finally, we get to a recovery phase where we try to reestablish the norm and try to give everybody a sense of order, predictability, and safety.
And then the final step of this process is reassessment. What's the value of that phase?
The value of that phase is we all get together and we talk about the response and we try to find where we have issues. Where do we need to practice? What were some of the hang-ups? What did we do right? We always got to look at the good side too. What did we do right? Where do we need to improve? And then we build that into exercises, drills, or into our everyday operations.
So it's not a set it and forget it, but it's a learn and adapt approach.
Exactly.
So, well, thank you for walking through this. Emergency response is not just a checklist, it's a mindset, and your team does an incredible job making sure that we are ready. And so thank you.
Well, thank you, Admiral. I'm proud to work alongside the team that takes preparedness this seriously. We are committed to doing it right for the community and for the environment.
And for our audience, that's a wrap for this episode. For more information, please see our website at NavyClosureTaskForce.Navy.mil. And until next time.
Mahalo for listening to Let's Talk Red Hill. Stay tuned for our next episode, and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date. Be sure to download the mobile app by searching NCTF Red Hill in the Apple Store or Google Play.